If you're a business owner or you're thinking about starting your own business, or if you work with clients and businesses, you need to know what a brand strategy is. Today, I'm going to be diving into every single question you have on this topic. Every decision you make while you're building a brand should bring you closer to the end goal. And as Marty Neumeier puts it in his book, The Brand Gap, he defines brand strategy as a plan for the systematic development of a brand in order to meet business objectives. So put really simply, a brand strategy, it's your game plan. It's figuring out what the business goals are and crafting a roadmap that'll get you closer. I'm Annie. I'm a brand strategist, a brand designer, and the founder of emptistudio. And brand strategy has been an essential part of my business and of how I can help create these brand identities that really align with a client's vision and goals. And stay till the end because I'm going to be sharing with you my exact 8-step brand strategy workshop deck, and I'm going to be sharing it with you so you can duplicate it and use it for your own business or for your clients moving forward. So the first question is, why is brand strategy even important? Well, because think of it this way, will you ever go on a road trip without a map? Probably not, right? And brand strategy, it is that map that guarantees you that you will reach that final destination. And when I say guarantee, I mean it. And that's how confident I am in my process, that I actually offer all of my clients a money back guarantee. If I don't create a brand that aligns with their vision, if they're not happy with the end outcome, I will give them a full refund. No questions asked. And that has really helped my sales process. But the thing is, after almost 4 years of working with high ticket clients, no one has ever taken up on that refund offer. And that's because this process, it gets them to the exact destination that they want to go. And question number 3 is, what happens without a brand strategy? Well, if you don't have a brand strategy, really you're just guessing. And guessing is what leads to mistakes. You'll make choices on what's your own personal preferences instead of what your client's audience or what your business's audience actually cares about. So let's just say your favorite color might be hot pink. That's really cool. But if your target audience is corporate execs, like maybe in the range of in their 40s or 50s, I'm pretty sure that they wouldn't vibe with the fabulousness of a pink explosion with that Barbie aesthetic, unfortunately. But I mean, who can resist this? So you never know, do your market research. But your brand should be a reflection of your ideal audience, not just what you like. And that is a really important distinction to make. If your audience doesn't connect with your brand, if they don't love what you put out there, then you'll make no sales, which means no money. And at the end of the day, no business. What is the purpose of brand strategy? Well, the core objective of this whole exercise is to build a genuine connection with your audience. And I have this slide in every single one of my workshops that I run, which is reminding the client, reminding myself that the heart of successful branding is alignment. So you have this idea as a business owner or as the designer of how the brand wants to be perceived. You want to be like Apple, you want to be like Google, you want to be like these really cool brands, and you have this identity and this goal for yourself. But then on the other side, you have what the ideal audience will resonate with. And a brand is something that's actually created in the minds of the audience. Everyone will have a different interpretation of what Apple is, and the brand is actually not what Tim Cook says it is. It's what us as the audience and as the customers describe it. And so we really have to just try to create that alignment. And when you know what your audience aligns with, what they value, then you can communicate with them in a way that actually resonates. And that is how you transform potential customers into loyal fans. So do I need a brand strategy? Do you need a brand strategy? Well, to put simply, 100% yes. Every business will benefit from a brand strategy. Without one, it's kind of like trying to run a marathon blindfolded. And I've worked with a lot of companies, from solopreneurs to companies with hundreds of employees, and every business needs a plan. What is the return on investment of brand strategy? This is a really good question. So here's a story of how I started to book 10K projects while I was still in university. My first high ticket project was at the 15K mark for a massive brand, but this is how I got there. When I first started my design business, I knew that I did not want to be generic. Why? Because if you're generic, you're competing on price. And when you compete on price, it's always a race to the bottom. I love using this example to illustrate what is a commodity versus a true brand. So for example, a bottle of water, you can buy it for 80 cents at your local supermarket, or if you're in Australia, you can actually just open your tap and get it for free. But Liquid Death has come into the market and they're charging $5 for a can of water. And essentially, water does the same thing. It'll hydrate you, but that $4 difference, that is the result of building brand equity as a result of a very successful brand strategy. This is reflected through its really unique positioning, its super bold concept, the edgy visuals, its sleek packaging, the creative messaging, and all the really unorthodox but fun and eye-catching marketing. This is not a coincidence. They have really thoroughly planned it out. They know exactly who their audience is. They know how much discretionary income they have, and they know how much they're willing to pay for a fancier can of water. So I ran a brand strategy session for myself early on, and in the beginning I was targeting small businesses, and it's really easy for a lot of us to start freelancing and think, I'll just target those mom and pop shops like the restaurants, the local cafes, and help them and work on their marketing if you're a photographer, if you're a brand designer, things like that. But I realized they're not the ones who have that marketing budget. But small to medium enterprises, on the other hand, they do. They're businesses that have the budget, but they don't really have such a huge budget to pay the fancy agency fees. So they're willing to take a chance on freelancers and smaller companies. So I positioned myself as a specialist branding studio for these scale-ups rather than startups. I found that is the sweet spot for a lot of solo service-based businesses, is to position yourself in a way that says, we offer agency-level results at a lower cost, at faster speeds, with a more personal one-on-one experience. This, for my design business, this positioning, it changed everything. So what type of projects actually require a brand strategy? Well, it's essential for any type of projects that will have a lasting implication on the brand. For example, if you're helping your clients or if you're helping yourself build a brand, a website, packaging, social media projects, you need to have a brand strategy in place. And for a visual example, let's take a look at my first website versus my current one. So this is my very first website. You can tell, emptistudio 1.0. This was back when I was in uni and I was learning coding, I was learning web design, but you can tell this is very me coded. It's kind of this soft beige pink, and I don't think it'll resonate with business owners or especially small to medium enterprises. Everything is very beige, it's very soft, it's kind of like a quite girly, you can tell kind of like a teenage girl built this, and it's kind of fun. I put in some animations, I made the cursor a circle instead of a normal pointed cursor, but I didn't do much research on who was my target audience at this stage. I just built a website that I thought was cool and tried to, infuse funky aspects to it, but there's no call to action and it's really not strategically backed by anything at all. Versus, this is my current website. So if you currently jump on the emptistudio.com website, this is what you will see. And I have done a lot of research into what agency websites look like, what professional websites look like. And I have gone ahead and created something that positions myself, even though when I built this, I was a solo designer. I wanted to make myself look as professional as possible because your clients, when they're looking for a service provider, they're going to open up like 5 or 6 tabs and they're going to find all of your competitors and they're going to put you tab by tab and they're going to flick through every single tab and look at your website, and you want to be the one that stands out as the most professional, even if you're a one-person business. I even included things like a video ask where it's interactive, so I'm actually speaking to them, and this gives it a personal touch because I found that agency websites, they are kind of really cold and distant. You're not able to see who the founders are, and it's kind of quite generic, and you feel like you're kind of standing behind a wall and you don't get to see the behind the scenes. So I created this to differentiate myself. I even added things like pricing, and this is kind of controversial, and a lot of people would advise you to hide your pricing or to negotiate during a call, but I found this actually works to filter out clients who might have a budget that's a bit too small, so they can kind of look at it and realize, okay, this is within my budget range or not. So when we actually get into the sales call, it's a lot more productive. Now, when should you run a brand strategy session? Well, that's a really good question. For business owners, or if you're an exec of a company, you need to run a brand strategy session as soon as possible. It's like that saying, the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago, and then the next best time is now. The same thing applies to brand strategy. In a perfect world, you would have done it very early on to validate your business idea in the first place, but don't worry, it's never too late to get clear on your brand and realign everything moving forward. And if you're a service provider, a brand strategy session should be the first kickoff call for any major project. For service providers like photographers, brand designers, your first official meeting with a client should always be a strategy session. So as in, when you sign the contract, when you get the deposit, that should be the first kickoff call. Make it a key part of your process and make it a non-negotiable. And this not only sets a tone, but also positions you as an expert consultant instead of someone who just follows orders. Now, how do you run a brand strategy session? Well, there's kind of two options. You can have a virtual meeting, which I typically host via Google Meet, Zoom, or Teams, whatever works best for the client. And then option two is an in-person meeting. So if you're local, if you're in the same area of your client, I highly recommend doing an in-person meeting to build that face-to-face connection. Try to connect with your client and have as many personal touch points as possible to build trust. And trust is what builds those long-term partnerships. One of my first biggest clients and we have been working together for almost 3 years. Early on, I made it a point to travel to them for every single meeting. And now that we have built such a solid relationship over the past 2.5 years or so, I have been working virtual and there has been no issues at all. So that initial effort really goes a long, long way. So how long should a brand strategy session take? Well, for me, I usually break it down into kind of two different options. If it's a small meeting, if I'm working just one-on-one with a solopreneur and it's just the two of us, it's usually a 2-hour session. And that's a deep dive and talking them through everything. When it's a larger meeting, say when there's multiple key stakeholders with bigger teams like scale-ups and SMEs with a lot of decision makers, I like to split it up into 2 sessions, which is usually 1.5 hours. Sometimes it can also extend to 2 hours. Don't be afraid of breaking it up into multiple sessions, especially when it's virtual, because Zoom fatigue is real and you do not want people zoning out. And this leads us to, what does my brand strategy sessions actually look like? Instead of telling you, I'm going to share with you my exact 8-step brand strategy workshop deck, and be sure to watch this video on the left because I'm actually going to be diving into step by step every single slide, how I walk my clients through it. So I'll see you there.